relied on training.
How long did the entire encounter last between when you first made physical contact with the suspect and the fire igniting?
Maybe 15 seconds.
So if you didn't have time to think, what did you do?
I relied on my training and muscle memory.
Is that what law enforcement officers are taught to do?
Yes.
Is that what you were taught to do?
Yes.
Were you trained? Where do you receive that training?
At the Basic Law Enforcement Academy and at our agency.
And did you follow your training throughout your entire encounter with the suspect?
Yes.
When you were on the ground with the suspect, did Deputy Kafinas use the taser a second time?
Yes, he did.
At that time, were you in gasoline?
Yes.
Was the suspect?
Yes.
So you were in the puddle of gas with the suspect?
Yes, it was.
Was it soaking into your clothing at that time?
Yes, it was.
And when I say it, do you understand I'm talking about the gasoline?
Correct, yes.
Were you concerned about the fact the gasoline was soaking into your clothing?
Absolutely.
Why?
Gasoline is flammable.
And prior to February 27, 2022, you already knew about the or did you know about the flammable nature of gasoline?
Yes, I did.
Would you say it's pretty general knowledge that gasoline's flammable?
Yes.
And prior to February 27th, 22, were you aware that tasers should not be used around gasoline?
Yes.
Was that part of your taser training?
Yes.
Was Deputy Kafinas in the same training class with you?
Yes, he sat next to me.
And once again, when was that training in relation to this incident?
The month prior, January 2022.
But that wasn't your first taser training, correct?
Correct.
Did they teach that same issue in all your previous taser training?
Yes, they did.
Was there a fire after Deputy Kafinas discharged his taser the first time?
No.
The suspect stopped resisting after he was tased by Deputy Kafinas the first time.
No, he did not.
Did he continue resisting?
Yes, he did.
Did Deputy Kafinas discharge his taser another time?
Yes, he did.
Please describe how Deputy Kafinas discharged his taser that second time.
He performed a drive stun.
And can you please explain to the jury what that is?
So you take the actual taser and press it against the skin and discharge it.
Did the suspect continue resisting after Deputy Kafinas used the drive stun technique on him?
Yes, he did.
At the time Deputy Kafinas used the taser the second time, where were the suspect's hands?
They were under him in his waistband area.
Had they been underneath him since the moment you took him to the ground?
Yes.
Were you telling him to release his hands?
Yes.
Did he?
No.
Was somebody assisting you in trying to gain control of the suspect's hands?
Yes.
Did you have any concerns about the suspect's hands being in his waistline area?
Yes.
Why is that?
In the academy and even in our training, it's a common place for individuals to carry a firearm.
And did you have any specific concern about this suspect carrying a firearm besides the generalized concern you learned about in the academy?
Yes.
And why is that?
The fact that he was the suspect of the aggravated assault, and that I was afraid that he would be using that firearm. He would use that firearm.
Now, when you formed that belief, were you relying upon information relayed to you by your colleagues,
Yes, I was.
including Deputy Kafinas,
Yes.
including the helicopter unit?
Yes.
Why would you rely on that information?
It's just something that we always do.
Are only the law enforcement officers who take an initial report of a crime allowed to arrest the suspect for that crime?
Suspect.
Can we approach Judge? As a law enforcement officer, have you arrested suspects before?
Yes.
Have you arrested suspects where you've observed them commit a crime?
Yes.
Have you also had to arrest suspects where you only received reports that they committed a crime?
Yes.
And so our law enforcement officers who take the initial report about a crime, the only ones allowed to arrest the suspect for that crime.
No.
Is it a general practice for officers to share information with each other about suspects?
Yes.
Is it a general practice for officers to arrest people that other officers have told them are suspects in a crime?
Yes.
After Deputy Kofinas deployed the taser a second time, do you know what happened to his taser?
Yes.
And what happened to it?
I observed it on the ground.
Did you see how it got there?
No.
Exactly where on the ground did you see it?
Directly next to the suspect's right arm.
Did that cause you any concern?
Yes.
And why?
That he would be able to retrieve the taser and use it.
What was the gasoline doing at that time when you saw the taser on the ground?
It was creeping towards us.
Did it eventually reach the taser?
Yes.
And so at some point before you grabbed it, the gasoline had caught up to and touched the taser?
Yes.
After you noticed the gasoline, did you say anything about it to the other deputies?
Yes, it did.
What did you say?
I told him to kill the pumps.
Why did you say it?
To alert the other deputies that the dangerous, the hazard of the gasoline approaching us.
And when you said that, did you whisper, say it normally, loudly? Can you describe for the jury how you said it?
I yelled it
Why did you yell it?
to make sure that they heard me.
Were you aware, prior to that moment, of the danger posed by a taser discharging around gasoline?
Yes.
Is that why you warned the other deputies?
Yes.
Did you have any particular concern for your own safety at that time?
Yes.
What about the safety of others?
Yes.
Why?
I didn't want anybody to get hurt.
What was going through your mind when you saw the taser lying next to the suspect?
I became afraid that he would be able to retrieve the taser and use it against us.
Why is that?
Because taser's a weapon.
Do law enforcement officers receive any training about keeping weapons away from suspects?
Yes.
Did you specifically receive training about keeping weapons away from suspects?
Yes.
Where did you receive that training?
At the Basic Law Enforcement Academy and at our agency.
And what does that training tell you?
That to never give up a weapon.
Are there any factors that made you particularly concerned about the taser being next to this specific suspect?
Yes.
And what are those?
The fact that he was armed and that he had just fled and that he's continuing to resist our efforts to get him into custody.
Now, when you said it was because he was armed, at that point, had you located a weapon yet?
No.
Was your belief based off the reports that you heard?
Yes, it was.
Did the fact that he would not show his hands contribute to your belief as well?
Yes.
How much time did you have to make a decision about what to do about the taser lying next to the suspect?
None. As soon as I recognized the taser was on the ground next to him, I immediately retrieved it
Why?
to prevent anything from happening.
When you grabbed the taser, which hand did you grab it with?
My right hand
Where was the taser in relation to your body?
on my right side.
So is that why you grabbed it with your right hand?
Correct.
When you grabbed the taser, did you engage the safety?
Yes, it did.
Why did you do that?
Because when it was on the ground, I noticed that it was still activated. It was on.
Now, when you grabbed the taser, were you intending to discharge it against the suspect?
No, it was not.
So, at that time, are you directly on top of the suspect?
Yes, it was.
And so I'm just going to say, would you say you're like kneeling on your knees?
Yes.
And the suspect, was he directly beneath you?
Yes.
And so when you reached to grab the taser, you would have grabbed it like that?
Yes.
And so if you were going to intentionally use the taser, how can you have done it from this position with the taser in your right hand?
I would have just performed a drive stun.
His body was right beneath you at that time?
Yes.
So you just stick it into him and
Correct, yes.
you would have tased him just like that?
Correct.
After you picked up the taser and turned on the safety with your right hand, what did you do?
I transitioned to my left hand
Why did you do that?
to remove it from the situation, get it farthest away from the gasoline and the suspect as possible.
So when you're on the ground at that time with the suspect, what is directly to your right?
The gas pumps.
So if this is the gas pump, and you're here, and you were to throw a taser to your right, what would happen?
Gas pump.
Would it essentially land right where you picked it up?
Yes.
And it would still be within reach of the suspect?
Yes.
What was to your left at that time?
A black car.
After you transferred to your left hand, what did you do with the taser?
I leaned to the left and I discarded it.
And when you say discard it, can you just explain that a little more for the jury, exactly what happened?
I threw it away.
So you leaned to the left and you threw it underneath the car?
Yes.
Why did you throw it there specifically?
To get it farthest away from him and the gasoline.
Where was your taser during this entire ordeal?
In my holster.
And on which side of your body do you wear your taser holster?
My right.
So you are used to grabbing and drawing your taser with your right hand?
Yes.
Do you always grab your taser with your right hand?
Yes, I do.
When you're in the field, you typically, let me reword that. Have you ever had to draw your taser in the field before?
Yes.
And every time have you drawn it with your right hand?
Yes.
When you draw the taser with your right hand, does your muscle memory ever kick in?
Yes.
Was your muscle memory, all right, let me reword that. Walk us through the actions you typically take every time you're drawing your taser in the field.
I disengaged the safety on the holster and I grabbed it with my right hand and then I retrieved the taser from the holster and then I transitioned it to my left.
Is that a movement you have practiced many times?
Yes.
How many times?
Countless.
Is that to develop muscle memory?
Yes.
Is that what you were trained to do?
Yes.
Is that what other law enforcement officers are trained to do?
Yes.
And why is it important to have muscle memory in the field?
Once again, we're in a high stress, high risk situation. We don't have time to sit there and think about what we need to do. The muscle memory would kick in and our training would also kick
Where was your firearm during this whole ordeal?
in my holster.
So you did not draw any of your weapons.
No.
Why not?
We were at a gas station.
After Deputy Kafinas discharged his taser twice and it was discarded, do you know whether it had any more cartridges left in it?
No, I did not.
Did you know whether it would function if you wanted to intentionally deploy it?
No.
Did you ever consciously disengage the safety at any time?
No, I did not.
Do you have any memory of ever disengaging the safety?
No.
Did you receive training as a law enforcement officer about whether it's to use your own weapon or one you find on the ground during a struggle?
Yes.
And what does that training tell you?
That we should not trust that weapon because there could have been a malfunction or an issue and that we should use our own weapons.
Based on your law enforcement training, if there is a specific target that you want to discharge any sort of projectile weapon at, where are you trained to point that weapon?
At the intended target.
So if I wanted to discharge a projectile weapon on somebody who's directly underneath me, would I point the projectile weapon down?
Yes.
If I pointed it this way, would it hit that subject?
No.
Well, if I pointed this way?
No.
Well, if I pointed this way?
No.
It has to be pointed at the target, correct?
Correct.
At any time did you ever point the taser at Barreto Baerga?
No, I did not.
Why did you not point the taser at the suspect when it was in your hands?
I was never going to tase him.
During your encounter, were you saying anything to the suspect?
Yes.
Were there deputies saying things? And at that time, were you still trying to arrest the suspect?
Yes.
Had you been able to get him into handcuffs throughout the entire encounter with him?
No.
Up until the point the fire starting, did he ever stop resisting?
No.
Did the suspect comply with the instructions you and the other deputies?
No.
What did he do instead?
He continued to resist our efforts.
At some point during their struggle with the suspect, did you make any comments about the suspect being tased?
Yes, I did.
Why did you say that?
In order to gain compliance.
And we talked before about different techniques you were taught. Is that a technique you were taught during your training?
Yes, it's a de-escalation technique
Where were you taught that?
in the law enforcement academy and at our agency.
When you say at your agency, are you referring to the TASER training curriculum developed by Axon?
Yes.
And Axon is the manufacturer of TASER?
Yes.
And you had just taken one of those classes the month before.
Correct.
Even before that class, you'd previously been taught that technique.
Correct, yes.
So that wasn't new, that was a long-standing technique that